So, today we're going to crack open an ancient text to explore a really fascinating story about victory, conflict, and, well, divine intervention. We're drawing from the classic commentary, Tafseer ibn Kathir, to get into Surah Al-Anfal. This is a chapter of the Quran that came down right after one of the most pivotal battles in Islamic history. Okay, let's dive in.
And that's the question at the very heart of our story, isn't it? I mean, just picture it. A small, totally outnumbered army has just pulled off an impossible win. You'd expect celebration, right? But instead, almost immediately, this bitter dispute breaks out that threatens to tear the whole thing apart.
And this is where our story really kicks off, with this question of spoils. The fighting at the Battle of Badr had just stopped, but a brand new conflict was just getting started. Not with the enemy, but right there within their own ranks.
Now, to really get this, we have to talk about one specific word, Al-Anfal. According to the commentary, it's not as simple as just spoils. See, it can mean the general plunder of war, sure, but it could also mean a special bonus a commander hands out, or even stuff that was captured without a fight. And that ambiguity, that's the key to the whole disagreement.
So you had one group, right? The soldiers who stayed on the battlefield and gathered up all the abandoned weapons and valuables. Their logic was pretty straightforward. Hey, we picked it up, so it's ours. Simple as that.
But hold on. The soldiers who had actually chased the enemy off the battlefield, they had a totally different take. They basically said, whoa, whoa, whoa. The only reason you could pick that stuff up is because we were busy securing the victory and making sure the enemy didn't come back. The source even points out a third group, the ones who guarded the Prophet Muhammad, who also felt their crucial role deserved a piece of the prize. So you've got three groups, and honestly, they all kind of have a point.
So how do you solve a problem like this? Well, according to the text, a revelation comes down that just settles it, period. The spoils, Al-Anfal, didn't belong to any one group. Nope. Instead, the ultimate authority was given to God and his messenger. They took control of everything, and then they distributed it equally among all the fighters. Just like that, the dispute was over.
But wait, how did they even get here? To really understand the weight of this ruling, we've got to hit rewind. Let's take a look at the road to Badr, because how this battle even happened is a story in itself.
You see, this was never supposed to be a battle in the first place. The original plan was way simpler: intercept a rich merchant caravan. But when the caravan's leader sent out a distress call, a full-on army marched out to meet them. Suddenly, the whole mission changed. And the source is very clear about this. A lot of the believers were not happy. This wasn't what they signed up for.
And right there, in that moment of hesitation, some key people really stepped up. Al-Miqdad bin Amr, one of the early companions, stood up and gave this incredibly powerful speech. He's drawing a line in the sand, promising total loyalty, and basically saying, we will not make the same mistake a past generation made when they abandoned their prophet at a crucial moment.
And then you get this absolutely pivotal statement from Sa'd bin Mu'adh. He's speaking for the Ansar, the local allies in Medina, and he gives them unconditional support. This was huge. Their original promise was just to defend the prophet inside their city. This statement right here, it extended that promise to any battlefield, anywhere. The army was now truly united.
So after all that drama leading up to the fight, the source text kind of pauses. It uses this moment to lay out what it sees as the ideal characteristics, the essential qualities of a true believer.
And it lists these 5 attributes. It starts on the inside, a sense of awe, a faith that actually grows when you hear revelation. But then it connects that internal feeling to external action, putting your complete trust in God, establishing prayer, and being generous with what you've been given. It's a whole picture of faith in action.
All right, so now we get to the battle itself. And according to the commentary, this victory, it wasn't just about human bravery and loyalty. The text describes several kinds of direct divine help that completely turned the tide of the fight.
First up, a couple of things that seem natural but are described as something more. A deep, calming slumber is said to have just fallen over the believers, giving them this sense of peace and security right before the chaos. And then, a rain started to fall.
And this wasn't just any rain. It had this incredible, almost strategic effect. The commentary explains that on the Muslim side of the battlefield, it packed the loose sand down, making the ground firm. But on the enemy's side, it turned the ground into a thick, sticky mud that made it almost impossible to move. A tactical advantage straight from the sky.
But it didn't stop there, not by a long shot. The source then talks about something even more direct, a promise from God to reinforce their tiny army with 1,000 angels, coming down in waves to join the fight. And to really bring this home, the commentary gives us this incredible personal story from the battlefield. An Ansari soldier said he heard the crack of a whip in the air above him and a rider's voice calling out a horse's name, Hazem, and then he just saw an enemy soldier fall down in front of him, untouched. When he told the prophet what happened, the reply was that it was from the reinforcements from the third heaven.
So what was the end result of all this? A completely decisive, and for many, an unbelievable victory. The Quraysh army, which was the much stronger force on paper, lost 70 of its men, and another 70 were taken prisoner.
And this one verse from the surah really sums up the whole spiritual takeaway from the battle. It basically says that every key moment, from the prophet throwing a handful of dust that blinded the enemy to the actual fighting, wasn't really done by human hands. It was all directly from God. The ultimate point being that victory, at the end of the day, is a divine act.
Okay, so finally, the chapter uses everything that just happened, this intense, chaotic battle, to lay down some really foundational rules of engagement for believers when it comes to warfare.
And this is where the text gets really specific, drawing a super important line in the sand. Fleeing the battlefield because you're scared, that's described as a major sin, something that brings on God's anger. However, the text gives two critical exceptions. It's okay to retreat as a tactic, to trick an enemy. And it's also okay to fall back to join up with another group of your own soldiers. One is cowardice, the other is just smart strategy.
And that really brings us full circle, doesn't it? We went from a fight over spoils to the definitions of true faith, all the way to the rules of conduct in battle. This single chapter covers so much ground. It leaves us with a big question to think about. How does a 1,400-year-old story about a desert battle continue to shape and inform our modern conversations about justice, faith, and the ethics of war?